Welcome back to Living Well, a program conducted at the Yarra Valley Living Centre, which is the home of the Gawler Foundation. And today with us we have Klig, who is helping to coordinate the kitchen and coming up with amazingly healthy and delicious meals. Not always easy to have healthy and delicious. How do you do that?
I think it's called a lot of practice and also some experimentation. So thank you to all of you who have been the guinea pigs to experiment, to allow me to experiment. But it's been a lot of fun, very interesting journey.
So you are a qualified chef, but what brought you into plant-based cooking and really healthy food? What was the driving force behind that?
Well, I think my main emphasis was that I was always interested in nutrition. And I did a lot of research for my own self around what kind of foods are really the most beneficial for the body, because even though I was in my early 20s and most of the people that I was around, even though I was a vegetarian, or plant-based diet at that time, most of the people that I was living with and hanging with, they were all meat eaters. And so at that time, just exploring different kinds of alternatives to the protein in particular, because that was a big emphasis. Like if you went to vegetarian cooking, then, oh my God, that meant that you didn't have enough protein. And so one thing kind of led to another. And what I wanted to do was to really get involved in not making a substitute for something. I wanted to make whatever that something was really as it was and really, really tasty. Mm-hmm. So my very first experiment, I think I was maybe 22 or 3. I had a dinner party for 7 friends, and 5 of them were male. So very big with the Barbies and, like this. And we got through, and I made a 6-course dinner.
You're good at those. I've experienced many.
So, it was a dinner party, so what can you do? So we were already through the 5th course, so that means almost dessert, when it was noticed that there wasn't any meat or fish.
Wonderful.
So from there, I really started to get inspired and saying, like, well, then it was possible. If these people who are serious meat eaters, I mean, minimum they ate 2 meals a day that had contained meat. And then for them not to notice, I just said, oh, wow, this is fantastic. So, really started to do more of that kind of involvement. And then because I became classically trained when I was in my 40s. And in between that time, I had a little catering company that was plant-based as well. And then I just became more interested in how, and I learned more techniques, of course, in terms of my culinary skills. So I was able to know which foods blended with which foods and which, especially herbs. And now that we're at the Living Center here, it's like so awesome that I can use so many of the different fresh herbs that are available. And I remember you saying from the comment after one meal that, it's like so many different flavors and interesting and tasty. And then all it came from was the fresh herbs.
Yeah, and there's a little herb garden just behind the kitchen. Very good place for it.
Yes.
So easy.
Easy access, right? You just
Going back to the protein, what is the facts about that? Like there's a lot of different opinions about how much protein we actually need.
Well, my research has said that, especially for my body type, and I'm a female and I'm of a certain age, I need very little protein. The reason why we need protein is because we need it for the muscular development and when we're young, and then also to sustain it when we are young people. So when we're young adults, we need a lot of the muscular energy. So for example, a very heavy man who's, say, probably, I don't know, like 150 or that kind of kilo, like really a big man, and is a weightlifter or a wrestler, he can eat only plant-based protein and still lift and be like world champion. Sorry, I don't know the exact weight that they can
There are
lift.
examples of
So
people.
you need the protein, but for a very specific reason. Unfortunately, we are told from the media and from different sources that all of us need to eat a lot of protein, but actually we really don't. Maybe some body types, they might need more, depending on their age or whatever, they might need more than the average. But the average person, really, even for myself now, because I have a little bit of a different bent because I'm practicing a different regime because I'm keeping away my arthritis. That's kind of a different story. But what I know about myself in terms of my protein for my age group, I only need 35 grams of usable protein a day. And that is basically the equivalent to, like in terms of dairy, it would be like 2.5 cups of milk.
So little.
So not very much. And if you reduce that in terms of like cheese or tofu, it's only a couple of pieces of tofu for your lunch, and then you have a little bit that you have your soy milk or whatever for your breakfast, or your almond milk, whatever, on your cereal, and then plus you're also combining proteins. So that's increasing the amount of protein. So for example, if in the almond milk it says that it has 3 grams of protein for each, I think it's 8 ounces or however, 250 mils of milk, then you get only part of that is usable for the body to digest. But if I combine that with, for example, oats, then oats have, say, 3 grams of protein per whatever. Then if I combine them, then I'm actually getting 6 grams of usable protein. So that's already 6 grams, and that's just, one part of a meal.
Yeah.
So,
So going back to this your health regime, because I was surprised one day when you said you couldn't eat kale. Kale is the wonder food, and everyone says, eat kale.
Yeah.
So I can see that it's very different for everyone. So what, first of all, brought you to the diet you're on?
Well, about 12 years ago or so, I was diagnosed with arthritis in my knee. In particular, it showed up in my knee, but I also had it in both hands. And I probably, looking back on it, also had it in my feet as well. But 20 years ago, I was quite in denial about my health and everything. So I didn't want to be unwell and like this. So I've kind of downplayed it. But then there came a time where I really was in a lot of pain, and I actually couldn't walk down the stairs. Most people, it's up the stairs, but for me, it was down the stairs without having a lot of pain. And so anyway, I went to the orthopedic surgeon. He diagnosed me with having arthritis in the knee. And then I said, well, I'm looking forward, even 5 years. I did not want to be a cripple and have to have knee replacement or whatever like that. So I said, no, I'm going to be able to fix this. So I did a little research, and all the research at that time was saying, high alkalize the body, and that was a trend at that time. So I said, okay, fine, we're going to alkalize the body. So that was a lot of kale and spinach and broccoli and all like this. So then I went to my present doctor, and she told me, no, actually, that's not right for your body. So I had to really work on eliminating a lot of the things that I was taking on a regular basis. Like I was heavy into oats, soy, the kale broccoli group, like all those strong greens.
All the things that we believe are healthy.
Right. And they are very healthy. But also what I learned was one needed to be in moderation.
That's another.
So that's the thing that I wasn't doing. And that's the thing that's a kind of a bit of a trap that we get into when we start to try and change our diet because of for one reason or another. And we really need to be very sensible, and we really need to be going very slowly about it. And one of the things that I really like about the going slow process is that one of the, I'm sorry, I don't remember his name, but he's very much a health food promoter in Australia, and he was well overweight, like he was getting to be morbidly obese. Then the doctor said, you're going for heart surgery pretty soon. I mean, the man was only 35 years of age. He was under an extremely stressful job, and he had just saw himself just going completely downhill. And, then of course it just got him into a state of depression and like this. So he went on a completely plant-based diet. And of course he was eating all the other kinds of, fatty foods and wheat and all like this, and which all caused, the high cholesterol and the heart disease that was happening for him. And he started with just fasting, but he fasted with juice. So what he was doing was he was totally, as he was getting rid of the toxins in his body, he was totally heavily nutriating his body. So he was giving his body so many nutrients, because we have to work at the cellular level. We always only look at all kind of the gross part of it. But this is what I learned from my doctor in Canada. I should give a nod to my doctor, Wendy Dang.
But when you say doctor, what kind of doctor?
Well, she is medically trained, so allopathic doctor. But then she discovered a technique in Japan, and she studied for 7 years in Japan, even though she was a Chinese background, so it must have been very challenging for her. And it's called electromagnetic resonance. And it's a type of biofeedback, but it does get to the cellular level of the body in terms of nutrients that the cells need. And so that's why those kind of juicing diets work. Whereas a fasting diet doesn't necessarily work. It will work in the short term, or any kind of a diet that but you need to have the nutrients in the body, and because that's what's going to sustain the body while the body is healing. And so of course after 2 years, he wasn't on juice for 2 years, but he was on juice steadily for I think he 3 months, and then he slowly went on to onto solid food and like that. But he literally became a changed man in just 6 months. And it was just amazing to look at him and his vitality.
Because all bodies are different, where does someone start to know what they need for their body? What would you advise? Who would they look for? Like, I want to change my diet. I don't know really what is right for my body. Where should I start?
Right. So I think from what I've learned and from the people that I know who have done different kinds of experiments, there's four main foods actually that really we need to eliminate for the body to start to regenerate itself. So the first one is wheat, and mostly wheat because, like, there's nothing wrong with wheat in itself. Unfortunately, the wheat that we eat today is heavily modified and heavily toxic. So it's lots of pesticides inside and insecticides and like that. And we're eating that. And that's what's causing part of the chaos. The second one is white refined sugar. And one needs to just look at the labels of all of the food that we eat. If it's pasta, if it's like whatever the processed food is that we eat, even in the packages of like flour, you're thinking that it just says plain flour. But you look and you'll see it's not just flour. There's other things inside. So that's really important to do. And then the third one is dairy. So that's why plant-based is really useful. And again, dairy in itself is totally fine. But again, what we've done is we've overused and end up abusing that food group, unfortunately. And then because of the consumerism that's happening all around in the dairy industry, then the dairy industry is responding to that need. So they're producing more and more so that we can consume more and more, whether we want to or not.
And it's now got antibiotics and
many
the cows
things
are not treated nicely. So
exactly.
Milk in itself, the dairy in itself, is not really maybe so bad for the body, but it's the whole packaging of it and processing of it.
Exactly. And the other thing is, again, if we look at the ingredients on milk, almost every bottle of milk will say it has vitamin D added. Well, that vitamin D did not come from the sun. That vitamin D is a chemical that's injected, and vitamin D, again, it's very good for the body.
Yeah.
But you have to get it from the natural source.
Yeah.
It's not, we can't, our body is not meant to denature that kind of
right.
It just stores as a toxin in the body, even though it's good, healthy for us. And the last one would be salt.
Right.
And you'll
What about
see
pink
sodium.
salt?
Pink salt is okay. So there will be some. Again, look at the label. So if you see anything that says sodium.
Yeah. So sodium is the
big red flag. That's the one that we want to avoid, because even in things like soy sauce, which again it's actually a healthy food product, but they manufacture it because there's so much demand for it, and they manufacture it with chemicals, and part of that chemical, and then for the preservative also is the sodium. So that's another one. But like pink salt, if you want to substitute, pink salt is very good. Sea salt, 100% sea salt. It has to say that on the label.
Won't do any harm, within moderation.
Yes, and you only
Everything
use it
in
when
moderation.
you need it to use it.
And I also noticed that you're quite intuitive, and you use methods to connect with food so that you get a feeling whether it's good for you or not. What do you do? What are you doing?
So what I've learned also is to really pay attention to what my body is telling me about the food that I need to eat. And what I do is I just kind of form a relationship with this with this food, and I just ask a question to myself: is this food beneficial for me? And then I'll get if I'm really paying attention, not wanting an answer like that, but really just paying attention, that food will vibrate back to me the answer that it
so
is,
it's
because
intuitive.
the food won't lie.
It's intuitive.
Exactly.
Wonderful
Right.
thing to
And this
develop.
is actually, it's that's where the whole biofeedback process, why that biofeedback process works, because the body is just responding to the vibrations, because everything is energy.
Yeah.
So food is energy, and it resonates with a vibration. My body is energy; it resonates with a vibration, and so if those vibrations are matching, just as we get along with people.
Yeah.
Like you just meet a person for the first time and you're best friends.
Yeah.
Well, where did that come from,
So
right?
you have friendship with your food.
Friendship with my food.
And also what we've talked about before is that really it's a choice whether to live well. So the topic is living well. So it's a choice. Like you could have opted for the operation and gone that route, but you chose to discipline. Would you call it discipline yourself?
I think actually I really wanted to focus on that word choice. And I gave myself also a time frame. So I said to myself, okay, for 6 weeks, and I what's called 12-stepped myself. So each day I would eat for that day exactly what was recommended for my body. So I did not vary at all.
Yeah.
Right.
So
For
when
6
you
weeks.
say 12-step, you mean the addiction steps of getting free from addiction.
Right.
Because food is also most likely an addiction when we're eating the things that are not good for us.
Right. So addiction to like what the body is attracted to, because we don't make proper food choices. We haven't made proper food choices. So what the body does is the body is actually looking for nutrients. So that's a piece of the kind of overweight puzzle that people don't understand. Is that the reason why they lose weight initially and then gain it back is a mindset. So initially the body will lose the weight because it needs to detox, it needs to get rid of all the toxins. And fat is holding those toxins in the body. It's a very, very good toxin holder. So when the toxins are released, because the body is now not having to deal with that extra food that's coming in, so it doesn't have to process it. So it goes like, oh, yippee, and just gets rid of all the toxins, also gets rid of the weight. So then the person becomes like, oh, yippee, I've, lost this weight. I'm doing great. I'm feeling wonderful. And then they start eating the same foods that created the problem in the first place. They might be starting to eat less of it, or just, a little bit, one at a time, whatever. But eventually they'll start to keep eating the same thing. And they'll just get back, and it just becomes a habit.
Yeah.
But if I'm conscious about the food that I'm eating, and I'm saying to myself, this food that I'm eating is bringing me benefit. We know automatically whether food is going to bring benefit or not. We know that.
We do.
And even you're talking about intuitively, they did an experiment. This was back in the 70s. They did an experiment with young children. They were in the high chairs, and they gave the babies on their tray. They gave them sweets, and then they gave them the whole foods. Like the foods that were good for them. And at first, they only ate the sweet things for like the few times that they were doing the experiment. And then after that, every single time they had the sweets and the good food, they only chose the wholesome food. So the body knows.
Yeah.
It knows automatically what to eat,
Yeah.
right?
This has been
If we
wonderful.
only listen.
I mean, you're so full of information, and we can't make this interview too long. So where do people get this information besides coming and chatting with you, which is very nice down here at the Yarra Valley Living Centre?
Well, let's see. I think I would recommend a very old book. I was thinking about it this afternoon, actually. It's a book by Frances Moore Lapay. It's a bit dated, and the information is dated, but it's a very good starter book, and it's called Diet for a Small Planet.
Oh, yeah, that was so popular
Very
in its
popular.
day. Diet
Yes.
for a Small Planet. Food
Right.
combination also.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And another one, I haven't looked at her work recently, but another author that's is very helpful was very helpful to me is now her name is gone from me.
Anyway.
Her face is right in front of me, and I can't remember. But Frances Moore Lapay is a very good start, and then from there you'll see
find other things, yeah.
other things.
Well, it's been really wonderful. And I know you also pay a lot of attention to the state of mind that you're in when you're cooking.
Yes.
So could we finish with a little bit of insight into that and a short meditation?
Okay.
What do you do when you're cooking? What goes on in your mind?
Okay. So mostly I think about who I'm cooking for, and I think about what is beneficial for their bodies and how I want to deliver that food is with the energy of love. So I just think really loveful and happy thoughts, yeah, because creating happiness in the kitchen is one of my joys. And I've been very fortunate to be working with quite a few people who have been recently coming to me and saying, oh, it was such a delight to work with you in the kitchen, and because they feel so happy. And I think just creating those happy thoughts in the mind really will help to put that energy into the food. And also thinking about, where did that food come from? And again, this gets back to that choice. Even before I make the food, when I go to the grocer, I go to the market, I chat with the people, I ask them about their food, and that energy also I'm bringing into the food, because that's I feel for me, it's a very important part of presenting food to people, is that whole idea of where did it come from. And then here at our center, we relate to the divine source of energy for that sustenance, like that's the being, the source of all good things comes from the divine, the supreme soul. And that also put that energy into the food as well.
So just a nice few thoughts to go out on. Say you're in the kitchen, you're cooking, some beautiful thoughts to have at that time.
So I just find that still place, even while I'm chopping, while I'm stirring the food. Find that center of stillness and go deep within, even for a moment. Go to that very deep, loveful, spiritual, calm, peaceful place inside of me. as I'm making that motion of stirring the food, of tasting the food, chopping the food, I go to that still place. And then I move on to the next activity. And again, while I'm beginning that activity, let me go to that still place, that point of light energy, that point of love, happiness, light.
So I think you can just imagine filling your food with this energy while cooking would make a very big difference to the state of mind. So thank you very much, Klig.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, lovely. Thank you so much. You've got so much wisdom in this area. I think you'll have to write a book. That'll be the best one. Thank you.
Thank you.
See you next time.